I, Barbara Walters, woke up in my Manhattan apartment as the morning sun streamed in. Even at 62, the habits from my days as an ABC News anchor haven't quite left me. As I brew my morning coffee, I gaze out the window at the greenery of Central Park. It's been 2 years since I retired, but I still find myself checking the news every morning. It's Taylor's day today, I smile to myself. It's my scheduled day with Taylor, my 4-year-old angelic granddaughter. I'm looking after her while my son Tom and his wife Rita are busy with work. Sitting at the dining table, nibbling on toast, I reflect on Tom and Rita's recent family situation. Tom is 35, working at an advertising agency in New York City. He's passionate about his work, always searching for new ideas. Rita, 33, teaches at an elementary school in Brooklyn. They both lead busy lives, but lately, I've noticed they seem somewhat tired. And then there's Taylor. Thinking about her makes my heart clench. Taylor has a mild developmental disability, with speech delays and social issues. She was diagnosed a year ago. Since then, Tom and Rita have been desperately searching for special support and therapy programs. Oh, I wish I could do anything for that child, I sighed deeply. The problem is the cost of support. Much of it isn't covered by insurance, and Tom and Rita are struggling financially. With the recession in the advertising industry, Tom's salary hasn't increased, and Rita's teacher's salary isn't enough. I know they're doing their best to manage, but the truth is, their debts are growing. I've offered financial assistance several times, but Tom has refused. We'll manage on our own, Mom. Don't worry, he says, and it breaks my heart every time. Tom always tries to put on a brave face for me. It must be his father's pride. I want to do something for Taylor. But I don't know how. Is there a way to help without hurting Tom and Rita's pride? This dilemma weighs on my mind daily. Looking at the clock, I realize it's almost time for Taylor to arrive. I hurry to get ready and start tidying the living room. I set out Taylor's favorite toys and prepare games to aid her development. The doorbell rings, and when I open it, Taylor jumps in with a beaming smile. "Grandma," she exclaims. Seeing that innocent smile makes all my worries disappear. "Welcome, my angel," I say, embracing Taylor. Grateful for the day ahead with her, I make a silent vow. I'll make sure you and your parents are happy. Somehow, I'll find a way. Reassuring myself, I take Taylor's hand and announce the start of our fun day together. 2 weeks after that enjoyable time with Taylor, our family decided to have a barbecue in a park near Lake George on a Sunday. Tom had suggested, "Let's spend some quality family time together." There was an unusual brightness in his voice. He must want to relieve some of the recent tension. We left Manhattan early in the morning. In the car, Taylor was humming excitedly. Seeing her like this, I felt relieved inside. She's usually a woman of few words, but today she seems to be looking forward to it. "Hey, Taylor. I wonder what kind of fish we'll see today?" Rita gently asks. "Fish. Big ones," Taylor replies. At that moment, The car was filled with a warm atmosphere. After about a 3-hour drive, we arrived at our destination. The clear surface of Lake George spread out before us, with the surrounding trees swaying in the wind. The air was crisp, a completely different world from Manhattan. "Taylor can play freely here," I said aloud without thinking. Tom answered while unloading the luggage from the car. "Yes, that's right. It's been a while since I've done something for the family. I hope Taylor enjoys it too." I felt a bit uneasy about his words. Family time. It sounds almost like a duty. But I suppressed that feeling and responded with a smile. "Yes, it's going to be a fun day." As we started preparing for the barbecue, each family member took on a role. Tom was in charge of starting the fire, Rita was setting the table. I started preparing the ingredients. Taylor was picking flowers on the nearby grass. At first glance, it looked like an ideal family holiday. However, upon closer observation, I could sense an underlying tension. Tom's movements were awkward, and Rita's smile seemed a bit forced. There seemed to be more distance between them than usual. "Hey, how should we cook the meat today?" I asked. Tom answered a bit irritably, "It doesn't matter, Mom. Just leave it to me." I flinched for a moment at his attitude. But I didn't want to cause any problems here. Today is a day for family togetherness. As the preparations were in full swing, I was completely absorbed in cooking. While grilling vegetables on skewers, I suddenly realized something. Taylor was nowhere to be seen. "Where's Taylor?" I asked. Rita answered, "She was playing over there just a moment ago." "Tom, did you see her?" Tom shook his head. "No, I was watching the fire." Suddenly, anxiety crossed my mind. We had all been so focused on our tasks that we had taken our eyes off Taylor. "Taylor!" I called out loudly. There was no response. Tom and Rita finally seemed to realize the seriousness of the situation. The three of us started searching the area separately. "Over here." We heard Rita's scream-like voice. We ran towards the lake. What we saw was Taylor's small body floating on the surface of the water. "Taylor!" Tom shouted, stripping off his clothes and jumping into the lake. Rita and I could only watch anxiously from the shore. Seconds later, Tom returned to the shore carrying Taylor. Taylor was unconscious, her face pale. "She's not breathing," Rita cried out. I tried desperately to stay calm. "Call 911. I told Rita, and I began performing CPR on Taylor. "Please, Taylor. Wake up," I called out prayerfully. Tom stood there in a daze. Fear and self-blame were visible in his eyes. When we heard the ambulance siren, Taylor coughed faintly. A glimmer of hope. But we were far from being able to relax. While the paramedics were loading Taylor onto a stretcher, all we could do was watch. Suddenly, Tom shouted, "Mom! Why did you take your eyes off her?" I caught my breath at those words. Should I be blamed? Or, amidst the swirling confusion, regret, and anxiety, the ambulance drove away with Taylor. We were left standing there, unable to say a word. The scenery of Lake George, which should have been beautiful, now felt terrifyingly cold. As the sound of the ambulance siren faded into the distance, we were still standing by the lakeside. It was as if time had stopped. Even after the ambulance carrying Taylor disappeared from view, my eyes remained fixed on the distant road. Why did this happen? Rita's trembling voice broke the silence. She collapsed to her knees and began to sob. Tom was still standing there in his wet clothes, looking dazed. His eyes still held the color of fear and confusion. I took a deep breath. Someone had to stay calm. Rita, it's okay. Taylor is a strong girl, I said gently. Let's think about going to the hospital now. Rita looked up at me. A faint light of hope shone in her tear-filled eyes. Yes, that's right, she answered in a shaky voice. We need to go to Taylor. Tom seemed to have finally come to his senses. I'll get the car ready, he muttered. Then he quickly headed towards the parking lot. I helped Rita stand up and gently put my arm around her shoulder. It's going to be all right. Let's get through this together. However, contrary to those words, anxiety was swirling inside me. Is Taylor safe? Will there be any lasting effects? And, why didn't anyone notice? When Tom brought the car around, we hurriedly got in. The car was enveloped in a heavy silence. Which hospital? Tom asked from the driver's seat. Glens Falls Hospital, I answered. That's what the paramedics said. As the car started moving and we headed towards the hospital, Rita kept checking her mobile phone repeatedly. Why hasn't the hospital contacted us? She muttered anxiously. They're probably still running tests, I tried to reassure her. If there's good news, they'll contact us right away. However, those words rang hollow. The tension in the car increased with time. Suddenly, Tom gripped the steering wheel tightly and shouted, "Damn it! Why did this happen?" Rita and I jumped at his voice. Tom's anger and self-blame had burst out all at once. Tom, calm down, I said, trying to reason with him. Focus on driving safely now. But Tom's anger didn't subside. Mom, why did you take your eyes off her? He glared at me in the back seat. You said you would look after Taylor. I caught my breath at those words. Tom, I was also preparing the food. No excuses. Tom yelled. It's your responsibility because you took your eyes off her. The atmosphere in the car froze. Rita looked at her husband with a surprised expression, and I was at a loss for words. Tom, Rita said in a small voice. It's everyone's responsibility. None of us were paying attention to Taylor. However, Tom wouldn't listen. No, Mom said she would watch her. We're busy with work, but Mom has free time. Those words sent a pain through my heart. Tom, that's not. Suddenly, the car came to an abrupt stop. We had arrived at the hospital parking lot. Tom got out of the car and turned to Rita. "We'll go alone." "Mom, you go home." "But, Tom." Rita hesitated. "Just do it," Tom shouted. "That's enough. If Mom is there, our position as parents." He swallowed his words, but their meaning was clear. My presence might call into question their qualifications as parents. Rita looked at me apologetically. "Barbara, I'm sorry. But..." "I understand," I answered quietly. "Let me know how Taylor is doing when you find out." Tom and Rita hurried towards the hospital entrance. I was left alone in the car. Watching them disappear into the hospital through the window, I let out a deep sigh. More than anger or sadness, only emptiness remained. And then, I made a decision. For Taylor's sake, I must uncover the truth, I thought to myself. Left alone in the parking lot of Glens Falls Hospital, I was stunned for a while. However, thinking about Taylor, I couldn't just sit still. I got out of the car and headed towards the hospital entrance. When I asked at the reception, I was told that Taylor was in the intensive care unit. I decided to wait in the waiting room to hear the doctor's explanation. After what felt like a long time, the doctor finally appeared. "Taylor's condition is stable," the doctor said. Fortunately, the oxygen supply to her brain wasn't cut off for a long time. However, the next 24 hours are crucial. I breathed a sigh of relief at those words. However, my relief was short-lived as a police officer entered the waiting room. "We'd like to ask you about the circumstances of the accident," the officer said. I explained the sequence of events, but I noticed that Tom and Rita were nowhere to be seen. When I asked the officer, he said they had already finished giving their statements and left. That's strange, I thought. Why would they leave in such a hurry when their granddaughter's life was in danger? As I answered the officer's questions, a sense of unease grew within me. Tom and Rita's attitude, and the situation they described, something wasn't right. After the questioning was over, I decided to return to the park. There must be something I had overlooked. When I arrived at the park, traces of the barbecue were still there. I looked around, wondering if there were any witnesses. That's when I noticed a family having a picnic nearby. Gathering my courage, I approached them, and they kindly responded. "Yes, we did see a child fall into the water," the father of the family said. "Actually, we were filming my daughter's birthday. It might be in the background of our video." My heart raced. "Would you mind showing that video to the police?" They readily agreed. I immediately contacted the police, and we arranged to check the video. The police officer's expression changed as he watched the footage. This is an unexpected development. I was also shown the video. What it showed was Tom leading Taylor close to the river. It wasn't an accident. It was intentional. I was speechless with shock. The police officer seized the video as evidence and said he would conduct further investigation. In a daze, I returned to my home in Manhattan. My mind was in turmoil, and my heart was filled with pain. Why would Tom do such a thing? The next morning, I was awakened by the sound of the doorbell. It was the police. We found new evidence, the detective said. We'd like to talk to you about the contents of the video. I led them to the living room and listened to the detective's words with bated breath. We've analyzed yesterday's video in detail, the detective began. What we found is that this wasn't just an accident. The detective took out a tablet and played the video. The clearer footage showed Tom leading Taylor by the hand to the river and gently pushing her. Why? I was at a loss for words. Furthermore, when we checked your family's bank records, we found that there have been large debts recently, the detective continued. And Taylor had a high-value life insurance policy. At that moment, all the pieces fell into place. Financial distress, Taylor's medical expenses, and insurance fraud. I can't believe it, I muttered. Just then, I heard the sound of the door opening. Tom and Rita had returned. I could see their faces turn pale. They froze when they saw the police in the living room. What happened? Rita asked in a trembling voice. The detective stood up and said to them, Mr. Tom, Mrs. Rita. New evidence has been found regarding Taylor's accident. The blood drained from Tom's face. What do you mean? The detective showed them the video. While watching the footage, Rita let out a scream, and Tom collapsed into a chair. Why? I cried out in tears. Why did you do this? Tom covered his face with both hands and began to sob. We had no choice. Rita continued, we couldn't pay for Taylor's treatment, the debts kept piling up. But to try to kill her. I said, my voice shaking. We didn't mean to kill her. Tom shouted. We just needed the insurance money. We only meant to hurt Taylor a little. But I was at a loss for words. I knew about the couple's financial situation, but I never imagined it would come to this. Why didn't you talk to me? I said, filled with sadness and anger. Rita answered, crying, we were ashamed. Our pride got in the way. The detective quietly said, both of you will need to come with us to the station. Tom and Rita complied without resistance. As I watched them being taken away, various emotions swirled within me. Anger, sadness, and deep disappointment. Left alone in the room, I stared blankly out the window. The desire to save my family and the anger at their actions conflicted within me. However, one thing was clear. The strong determination that I must protect Taylor. I stood up and began preparing to go to the hospital. The road ahead would be difficult. But for Taylor's sake, and for the future of our family, I must continue to move forward. A few days after Tom and Rita's arrest, I was meeting with a lawyer. The trial of the two, charged with attempted felony and child abuse, was about to begin. To be honest, Barbara, the situation is dire, the lawyer said. The evidence is conclusive. I let out a deep sigh. I understand. But they are Taylor's parents. Isn't there any way to help them? The lawyer chose his words carefully. We'll do our best, but prison time is unavoidable. Right now, we should prioritize Taylor." Those words brought me back to reality. Yes, Taylor is the top priority now. The next day, an official from the New York State Child Protective Services (CPS) came to visit. "We'd like to discuss Taylor's future," the CPS official said. "Are you planning to put her in a facility?" I asked anxiously. "Well," the official hesitated a bit. "If care by a blood relative is possible, we believe that would be best." Those words gave me hope. "Would it be possible for me to raise her?" "That's definitely worth considering," the official replied. "However, there will be a rigorous review process." For the next few weeks, I worked tirelessly to gain custody. Home visits, psychological evaluations, financial status checks. I cleared each process one by one. At the same time, Tom and Rita's trial was progressing. They pleaded guilty and asked for leniency. The court considered their financial hardship but also pointed out the severity of the crime. In the end, Tom was sentenced to 7 years in prison and Rita to 5 years. When I heard the verdict, my feelings were complex. Their actions were unforgivable. But they, too, had been suffering. About a month after the trial ended, I received a call from CPS. "Barbara, after our review, we've decided to grant you temporary custody of Taylor," they said. I couldn't help but cry at those words. "Thank you. I'll do my very best to raise Taylor." However, the CPS official added, "But regular supervision and reports will be necessary. And please understand that there may be a reevaluation depending on the situation after her parents are released." I nodded deeply. This wasn't an end, but a new beginning. As I prepared to welcome Taylor, I renewed my determination to provide this child with a safe and loving environment, and to act as a bridge, hoping that one day the whole family could heal and reconnect. It won't be an easy journey, but for Taylor's sake, and for the family's sake, I was prepared to give it my all. Our new life with Taylor began in my Manhattan apartment. The first few weeks were challenging as we adjusted, but gradually a new routine took shape. "Grandma, are we going to the park today?" Taylor asks with a smile at breakfast. "Let's see, we'll go in the afternoon. Remember, we have a doctor's appointment in the morning, okay?" Taylor's face clouds over a bit, but she quickly nods brightly. "Okay, I understand." The regular therapy at the Child Mind Institute was having a remarkable effect on Taylor. Her language skills were improving, and she was gradually developing social skills. I was changing too. I started volunteering at the New York Foundling, supporting children in similar situations. "Barbara, your experience is inspiring many people," a staff member at the facility told me. Indeed, the journey is challenging. But every time I see Taylor smile, I gain strength. And I spend each day hoping that when Tom and Rita return someday, we can start anew as a healed family. A year has passed since then. Squinting at the morning sun streaming through the window, I quietly sip my coffee. Taylor is still asleep. Over this past year, we've overcome many difficulties. My heart ached many times seeing Taylor cry at night or long for her parents. But gradually, she regained her smile, and now she started attending kindergarten. "Grandma, are we going to see Mom and Dad today?" I smiled gently at Taylor's question. "Yes, we are. It's visitation day, isn't it? Monthly visits to the prison." While serving their sentences, Tom and Rita are seriously engaged in counseling and educational programs. Every time I see the regret of the past and new determination in their eyes, my heart fills with complex emotions. They're trying to change, I remind myself. Indeed, the past cannot be changed. But the future is different. Taylor's growth, Tom and Rita's rehabilitation, and my own changes. All of these are shaping a new form of family. Through my volunteer work at the New York Foundling, I've witnessed the rebirth of many families. It should be possible for us too. "Grandma, let's go." Taylor's voice brings me back to the present. As I take her small hand, I make a quiet vow. There will surely be more difficulties ahead. But with love and patience, we can surely overcome them. And someday, we will truly become a family, in every sense of the word. Dreaming of that day, we step out into a new day.